childhood memory that woke me up laughing this morning that I had to text my parents about. So we grew up in the Bay Area, and so a lot of our friends growing up were either Asian or Pacific Islander American, or African American. And my sister went to a birthday party with a family who was Vietnamese, and so they all took their shoes off at the beginning of the birthday party. And then when they went to go leave the birthday party, my parents were like, "Erin, go get your shoes." And she's like, "I can't." And they were like, "Why?" And she was like, "Mimi's grandma is wearing them." And so my parents were like, "Okay, we'll ask and see if, Mimi's parents can get the shoes." Like, just not even thinking it'd be an issue. And so then my parents were like, "Hey, your grandma's wearing our daughter's shoes. Let's not talk about how giant our white feet are, that's possible for a child and adult to share shoes. But can we have the shoes back?" And they were like, "Well, we can't disrespect grandmother."
No.
They refused. They wouldn't ask her for the shoes. My sister just left barefoot.
Oh my God.
And my sister was like, "I liked those shoes." And I was like, "Too bad now."
Respect first, age before beauty, honey.
I know. And I was like, that's ballsy to just like pile of shoes. Gonna pick the ones I want. No one's gonna ask shit for me. I'm the elder.
What I'm picturing is the grandmother just going back into her closet at the end of the day, and it's just like shelves of children's shoes
Just an
that she's
entire rack
stolen
of
at
shoes. And it was one of those things that, like, I think everyone just expected she'd be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought these were so-and-so's. Here you go." And that it just wouldn't be an issue. Nope.
No, I think that grandma knows what's up. I think they just stop caring at a certain point. They're like, what are they fucking gonna do? They're gonna
I like these ones. You can have these ones. You can have my old ones.
I love that also that a version of disrespect is asking for a property that doesn't belong to her. Like, how is that disrespectful? Okay, she stole something.
If you want to look at it, that is what white people do all the time.
Exactly.
So, like, it was a dose of our own medicine, probably. I was trying to think, did she stand there and try all of the other shoes on? Mm-hmm. Or can she just eyeball her foot size to know what fits her? Or do they all have the same foot size?
Or potentially, too, she's like ill. Like maybe she has dementia and she just like...
That was my thinking. Like now as an adult, I'm like, she probably just doesn't know. And they were like, we're not going to fight it. Bye-bye shoes.
There is a thing with like dementia people, like people who have not dementia people, but people who have dementia, okay, where they like, you if they say something, you're not supposed to disagree with them. Even though
you gotta improv it. You gotta improv it out.
No. Yeah, no, we definitely live in the White House, Grandma. Yeah. Like that's for sure. Yeah. Like this is the White House. Yeah, this is the Oval Office. Yes.
My grandma's had dementia for like 15 years, and we don't disagree with her at all. Yeah, and we're just like, no, yeah, of course.
Yeah, you gotta yes and that shit. That's all.
It like upsets them, and then they get destabilized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and we kind of had this feeling of like, she could be happy and wrong or upset all the time and still kind of wrong most of the time. We're going to go with the former.
All right. Well, let's start the podcast. You guys, welcome back to Black Card Rehab, the show where we go from 0 to black, one episode at a time. I am joined by my white friend, Paige. Hi, Paige.
Hello.
Paige, on a scale of 0 to black, how are you feeling today?
I have been baking all day, so I'm actually feeling sweet potato pie today.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Miss Patty up in here.
Yes.
Wow. Patty.
And Crystal, on a scale from 0 to African American, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling I guess a flat earther, like a black conspiracy theorist today.
That is a really common one.
Just because I started watching this Australian procedural called Janet King. and the woman in it looks exactly like our mutual friend Katie French. And I'm like, I texted her, I was like, bitch, what are you doing my Australian procedurals? And she goes, "G'day, bitch."
Yes.
So, yes. And today we have a hilarious guest and a good friend of mine. Let's see, what do I want to say before? She's been on the TVs, on the Amazons, the Hulus. She has an album out now. You can get it on her website. Download it, pay for it first, then listen to it, then laugh in that order. Madison Shepard.
Hi. Does it truly matter that does any of this matter anymore? I don't even know. Like, I'm like, I guess I have been on TV, but like,
I know.
I feel like there's gonna be a time before and after Rona. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's a hard reset on the career, and nothing fucking matters. So
I'll tell you what matters to me is your fabulous Prince shirt. That is so great.
I was gonna like shower and dress for this, but I just didn't have it in me. I was like, let me just research again, review all my notes from the last time I did this podcast.
I know. Yes, I should say this is I guess a
redo.
It's a redo. It's a do-over. Yeah. It's a, because the first time we did it, that shit didn't record. I was not using my own equipment. I was trying to support Black businesses, and it's not her fault. I mean, it's a little bit her fault, but
to be fair, like the 6 episodes we taped thereafter were fine.
They were fine. But yes, we did do this episode, wanted it to be a part of the launch. Didn't happen, and so I wanted to make sure that it happened because it was a lot of really interesting information, and I think we need, I think we do need more like actual historical information getting out there in light of all the conspiracy theories that people are spouting and believing. I mean, it used to be in a more innocent time. It was, theories about Beyonce and the earth, but now it's literally like conspiracy theories that will affect our health.
That will literally kill people.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Beyonce conspiracy?
The one that she was carrying Solange's baby.
See, that's or like vice versa. Know about.
No, yeah, I think it's the other way around. That there's a theory that this guy has that Solange actually carried Beyonce's baby, and
my favorite is that Kelly Rowland and Beyonce are actually sisters. Like, Kelly is an illegitimate like daughter of Matthew Knowles.
Oh, I was gonna say my favorite is just that she's like 10 years older than she claims to be.
Oh yeah, I actually believe that one though.
I do too. Yeah, hardcore.
Because she the timeline doesn't align.
It doesn't.
She's been in my life.
Amazing.
She does. She looks great for 47.
Thank you. Yes,
best 50-year-old woman out there doing it. You know what I mean? She can step into that.
I think rather than the Illuminati, it's got to be a vampirati. Like we were talking the other week about how Angela Bassett, she was in Vampire in Brooklyn, and how she's actual vampire because like aging.
She has not aged. She has not aged.
And I think that's the true that is the true Mason's Club, like that of Black women, is their vampires.
Every time I see her, I am struck by her beauty. Like I'm just like
Daywalker for sure.
Yes.
There was this book by Octavia Butler, which I cannot remember the name of right now. It would make me seem like very like literate in Black literature. You know what I mean? But like I can't remember the name of it.
Very
right. Like I went to school for this shit, which I did not. But I forget the name of it. But it's a book about a Black vampire who's half like Black woman and half vampire, and the vampires were trying to like kidnap her to steal her DNA because she can walk in the sun because of the melanin.
Listen,
I think I have read
believable.
This book.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Believable.
That's Angela Bassett.
You mean the autobiography of Angela Bassett? Is that what you mean?
I'm pretty sure I have read that book as a teenager, and I do not remember the title of it because I've been through many separate vampire phases in my lifetime.
Same.
And that story sounds extremely familiar.
I love that as a concept. And then on the show, this is not a vampire podcast, but on the TV show version of what we do in the shadows, we have Wesley Snipes does like a cameo.
Oh,
yes.
And he's just like in the daylight, like on a plane, and it's like, oh yeah, because black, he's half, you know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, yeah. So black people, we are vampires. Yeah. Let's spread the rumor. Can we start it here on the podcast now? Disseminate it since we're giving out fake news anyways. Let's like fucking. Let's do some cool stuff with it.
When we did Vampire in Brooklyn, we established that there is a precedent for vampiric stories from the diaspora that are very interesting that they apparently chose not to use in that movie at all. So I would argue for fantastic black vampire stories.
Yeah. I just imagine John Witherspoon walking into the writers' meeting as they're like trying to research it. And then he slaps a book out of that. What you do with all that reading, boy? And like that's what
he just like sprays the air with Lysol to get all the learning out. He's like, blowing it up.
No motherfucking books,
right?
And that's how they came up with the script. Ahoy, motherfuckers!
Ahoy, motherfuckers!
It's the best line. And Madison, on a scale of 0 to black, how are you feeling today?
Currently, I'm feeling very black. I mean, very black for me. I mean, I am in a bonnet. I'm in a silk bonnet.
Yes, you are. It is glorious. You and Chris Evans. Have you seen those memes of him in a bonnet and long nails? Yeah. That, oh my God, it kills me.
Oh, it's so
Chris
beautiful.
Jamal Evans.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of a completely different Chris Evans.
We're talking about that Chris Evans.
Okay.
There's a woman on Twitter who
like him like this.
She like puts anytime he like does that with his hand, she will like add long nails to his fingers and give him a bonnet and look amazing. Up. And right now she's like live tweeting this series that just came out with him in it. It's called Defending Jacob. And she keeps putting hashtag Defending Jaquan. It is the funniest. Yeah, so she's like, why does Quan still have his computer? It's the best. She's the best.
Okay, I've got images of it right now.
Yeah. Yes. If you haven't seen it, pull it up, you guys. But yes, that's it.
That's it. He just got the little smirk in the hand, like exactly. the see this not we not fit. See this what we not fit into hand. You know, like
that's probably I think the best.
Oh,
one.
Amazing! Yeah, I feel like Chris Evans in a bonnet right now. I did also cut off all my relaxed hair.
I saw that.
So I am feeling extra motherfucking melanated.
Yes.
Just letting that natural curl pattern just come out of my crown, honey.
Yes. Let's go.
Also because they said the beauty shops aren't going to open for like a year. So I was like, I can't. Who are we fooling with us? Stop.
Yeah, ain't enough YouTube tutorials in the world.
Honey, I don't have the upper arm strength to reach the back of my head like that. I just can't get. It's always gonna be a little.
I physically can't reach it. I can never blow dry the back of my head. I have to go like upside down, and it's not quite right. Never have been able to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's hard to get the angle right. You have to really be skilled at that.
Yeah,
and
you have to be like double jointed for that shit.
And honestly, who needs it right now? I mean, any way that people are going to see me is going to be front facing in a photo anyway. Yeah. So
I haven't touched
on the internet
in 2 months.
I mean, I have wigs, but I bought a new one. And I'm like, if it really comes down to it, if I get really feeling away, I'll just pop that wig on like a hat and call it a day. I'm not going to glue it down. I'm not going to do shit. It's just going to be like on my head. It's gonna be fuzzy in the front facing in the zoom anyway. So you ain't really gonna see that the lace is like just like, you know, like fried chicken on the top of my forehead. Like,
but it'll give you a chance to do snatch reveals.
It's true.
Oh, yes.
So I can pull out my 3-year-old plaits, like my child plaits underneath the wing. So that is to say extra black. 10.
Extra black. That's extra black, extra vampire black. Why is that should be a nail color? I'm sure it is.
It's just a Wesley Snipes skin color. It's like a dark brown.
Ooh,
there is
that sounds
a
good.
famous nail color called Vamp, which is basically dark brown.
Oh,
For that exact reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was very popular in the 90s.
Of course it was. I'm sure Lauryn Hill wore it.
Oh, definitely. She's currently
on Sister Act 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure she signed her tax returns with it. Not.
Hold on, let me dip my nib in the pot of OPI Vamp. You're like, Lauren, you can't do this. Is that why she never turned them in?
Exactly.
It's like she's still waiting for the nail polish to dry.
Yeah, she's like, I don't have a UV light. What do you expect of me?
It's not, the gel's never gonna set, you know. She's like a dementia client. No one disagrees with her. They're just like, yeah, sure, yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Of course,
that's right. Joyful indeed.
Okay, so Madison, what are you here to talk to us about today?
Today, I am going to be talking about one of the historic Black neighborhoods in Los Angeles called Central Avenue.
Oh, Central Avenue.
Central Ave. It was the West Coast's answer to Harlem in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And then we're going to talk about that. I just want to shout out really quick before I get going on this portion of the pod with you guys. I got most of this information because I refused to read anything but self-help in the quarantine. But I got most of this information from 2 YouTube documentaries. You can find them. One is called Los Angeles History Project, an ode to Central Avenue, and The Black Beverly Hills, parts 1 and 2 by Khalif Bradley.
Look, that's what I love about Black people, titling things very specifically. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's a church, it's going to be First AME, founded by John Perkins, the 4th, brother of Henry Louis Jones. Like, that is the name of the church. I love that that's the title. It's like, it's like so specific. You can't get it twisted.
Worshipful Gladness, congregation founded.
Exactly. Church where your mama went. Like, it is so specific. I think
there's really a difference between the way Black people name YouTube documentaries and white people name YouTube documentaries. First of all, Black YouTube documentaries tend to be researched. White YouTube documentaries is just a guy staring too close into a webcam, and it's just titled Illuminati Lizard Reveal Donald Rumsfeld. And you're just like, what is happening? What are they talking about? Why are there pictures of Rihanna turning into a lizard?
Okay, so you watched these 2, and what did you find? I mean, I don't know anything about. I never knew anything about this. How did you even stumble upon this?
Well, okay, so I mentioned this before, but I have always wanted to write a TV show or a movie based on a historical, like this historical Black neighborhood in Los Angeles, because I think we see a lot of like Black media about New York in the 20s, but we don't learn about or like the rural South in the 20s, but we don't in the 30s, but we don't really see like Los Angeles, and you know,
and
so
not the Black version of LA.
No, and it's a completely like it is, you know, it mirrors white society, but because there's so much like segregation and like literal laws that prohibited Black people from engaging in white society as white people would, like it's an entire like segregated area that has its own blooming economy and housing structure and social structures, and it's just very fascinating.
Do you have a theory about why it's not covered?
People hate Black people? I don't know.
No, I mean, like,
I didn't mean to laugh at you, but I was like, well, yeah, that's the reason, Crystal.
No, I mean, like, why does I have a theory about why New York and the South get more get more coverage, in the media for that time period. And my theory is because there's a way that like the scenery in both of those places can look impoverished. And I think it's harder for like, like even older LA, like with all its palm trees, like even like Boys in the Hood, like you look at those first few scenes, it doesn't really look poor. Like, especially not to people in other countries. They're like, I'm sorry, you guys are in houses, like
houses that are far apart, that aren't like right next to each other. Like people, like when I went to school in the UK, they're like, "Is your family rich?" Because I showed them a photo of my house, and it was like, there was space between the land. You know what I mean? Like it was like very closed in for LA, but it seemed like I was very wealthy to them because of my house.
Exactly.
Not being detached.
That is the dream.
I think also it's just not covered as much because I don't think, frankly, I feel like in the history of America in general, because California is a newer state, it became a state directly after the Civil War. I think that people sort of disregard it. And there is a lot of conversations about LA that is, LA doesn't have culture, LA doesn't have history, but actually it does. And it dates back a long fucking time before, it has a long history as a part of Mexico. And it just, there is a myth that there isn't history in LA. And so I don't think that people care about it. And also maybe because the people who make movies live here and they don't appreciate that. And they also, I mean,
made a lot of imports.
Right. They were like, I mean, you guys grew up in California. It's like when you're a young person in California, for example, you just want to leave California for a time because you're like, ugh, this weather and palm trees, boo. Like, I want to go someplace where it rains.
See, I grew up in the rainy part of California, so I left for the palm trees, but now I would give anything for rain.
Yeah. But yeah, so I find this very fascinating. I think also on a personal note, I think because there is such a disconnection between me and my Black family, I have always been super intrigued by Black history my whole life, just because there were, even though I lived in a Black neighborhood and I grew up around Black people, there wasn't like direct like oral histories being given of my family and where they were and what we were doing and all of that. So I've always sort of been interested in the history of Black people in America, because I'm like, maybe I can fill in some gaps that for my fucked up family tree. I don't know.
I think that's interesting because, like, I would say that's part of your experience is also my experience in terms of like not getting the oral history. But I think probably because I was around my Black family, I just thought that was normal for nobody to be talking about anything. So I didn't, it never prompted me to research because I'm like, I guess I'm not supposed to know.
Crystal, that's so lazy.
I know. Yeah, but I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast, is because I'm like, okay, let's get off of our asses and like finally learn about these things that I have maybe like tertiary interest in, or it is more close, but I just never got around to it. So yeah. That's really okay. So that's where that's your starting point in terms of even wanting to know about this.
Right. Yes. So for me, like I just find it fascinating, and maybe I've written like plays about this time period. Like I need to like write like something to be filmed.
What's the name of one of your plays?
I have one.
You don't want to name it because we could research it and find it?
No, I think it's like you wouldn't be able to find footage of it or anything. But it's, one is called like Consider the Night and whatever. I had a whole life before comedy, which I'm rediscovering now that I don't have comedy because of the quarantine.
That's kind of what we all do. No, yeah, before comedy, I just worked in a cookware store and baked bread all the time. So
like I said previously, like Central Avenue was like it's a historic Black neighborhood in Los Angeles. It's located east of downtown, and it stretches from downtown LA to Slauson Avenue, which is like a huge area in Los Angeles. So it's like an area that goes from downtown LA all the way to Slauson. It's a huge stretch. Basically, there's a ton of Black historic neighborhoods in Los Angeles. This is just one of them that I'll be focusing on now. So, you know, there's like View Park, Baldwin Park, parts of Pasadena, Altadena. Black people lived everywhere because that is how Black people are. We just are everywhere, you know, same as everyone else, even though our histories of cities is often left out. You know, LA was, you know, back when it was founded by like explorers from Mexico and Spain. And like, you know, there's Black people there at the founding of Los Angeles. Like we have always been in LA, you know. When people say there's no Black people in LA, it's like, well, no, that's definitely not true. There are plenty of Black people here. You just got to know where to find us. Okay. Now, all that being said,
there should be a tracker. Oh no, that's wrong. No, we don't need a tracker.
I don't think you want to sign up for that, Crystal.
I was thinking like a food truck map, you know, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a bad idea.
Where are the Black people at?
No, just look for where the Nipsey and Kobe murals
that's
are.
True.
And that's where you'll find Black people.
Yes.
That's where we stay. That's where we stay at. So this, you know, in LA, there used to be something called redlining, which is like Black people could have these invisible walls around their neighborhoods that said like you can live here, and it's not so much there was actually a line drawn around it or there was actual walls prohibiting, but there were laws set up where like Black people couldn't even not only purchase land, or you couldn't even rent a house on or an apartment that was on certain land. And that was because there were covenants or clauses in lease agreements and real estate agreements back in the day that said only white people can occupy this space. So there, in response, there was like a huge thriving community along Central Avenue. And the time that I'm kind of focusing on is from like 1920 to like 1950, because the laws changed by the Supreme Court. And though it was still complicated for Black people to buy land in Los Angeles outside of Central Avenue and all these other districts, it was actually like legal that they could. And so Black people started buying, you know, that's when we have Baldwin Hills and View Park and Ladera Heights, which are like, you know, Black Beverly Hills, right? Okay. So the people who lived along Central Avenue in the like 20s, 30s, and 40s are like the children and grandchildren of slaves and sharecroppers. So these are people who migrated during the Great Migration. A lot of reason why there's a ton of Black people in cities now is because after slavery ends and we go through the quote unquote Reconstruction period, a lot of Black people, and then into the Jim Crow era, a lot of Black people left the plantations and left the rural South and moved into big cities, right? So Black people really start being up in this motherfucker in the turn of the last century. Okay, we really out here in these city streets, living a city life. You know, it's very great. So, like I said, there's like a ton of segregation, right? We don't need to go into the details of it. It's horrible. There's lynching. There was even, when people say like, oh, racism doesn't exist in Los Angeles, it's bullshit, right? Because, you know, in the night, what year was this? Ugh, I wish I know I wrote it down somewhere, but now I can't find it. But can you not? I'm doing a podcast right now. Okay, go lay down and get out of here. I love you. He's like half asleep right now. Yelling at us. Really? You know what? Asian people are not allies right now. He just said he's going to pass a law saying that Black people can't cross out of the living room of this apartment. Do you see that shit? So there was like a KKK rally. I can't even. Okay. There was like a KKK rally in the 1920s where like 2,000 members of the KKK marched down the streets of downtown LA in protest of its Black residents and to let them know that, hey, motherfucker, we are here, Negroes. Trust me on that one. So like there's a huge surge in the Black population of Los Angeles in the early 1900s. So in like the 1900 census, there was about 7,000 Black people. And in 1930, 30 years later, there was 38,000 Black people, just to kind of show the increase of Black people in the area. And I think by the 40s, it had doubled. Yeah, it was like almost 80,000 10 years later, due to the Great Depression and stuff. So it's really hard for Black people, you know, at this time. You couldn't get insurance, you couldn't own land, you could not vote. If you went to white-owned stores, you couldn't like get the actual price of an item. So, you know, sometimes something would be listed as $1 in the price, but Black people, you know, Black tax, we would be paying like $1.50. Like, it was just a crazy increase just because they didn't want Black people to shop.
So I go into Walgreens and I'm like,
and what year is this? What year is this?
1942.
Yep. Okay.
And I go in for my African Pride hairspray.
And your Amazonian clay.
Yes.
And your edge
my
control.
Edge control.
Shea
Super
butter
hold.
edge control.
Yeah. And I've added it all up in my mind, and it's $15.25.
Yeah.
And I get to the register, even after entering in my Walgreens club card, and these bitches are like $29.99.
I think you forgot a step where they'd have to unlock your beauty products because they put yours behind a cage and none of the other ones because they're racist as hell.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's some bullshit.
Yeah. So that's what's going on. So, you know, but during this time, you know, this is like during the Harlem Renaissance time period, just to kind of give people a little bit of, you know, the parallel.
Does this area have its own, like a name like that? Like there was Harlem Renaissance. Do they have Central?
They just called it Central Ave. Yeah. So Central Ave was the neighborhood. It was dotted with like jazz clubs. And in 1928, they built the first Black only fancy pants hotel in Los Angeles. So like Black entertainers, when they came to LA, they didn't stay at the Biltmore and they didn't stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel because they weren't allowed to stay there. They stayed at the Dunmar Hotel, which is now, I believe, an old folks home, assisted living for elderly people. So, you know, and all of like, you know, who's who of like Black life during that time stayed there. Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Cab Calloway, Langston Hughes, W. Du Bois, like all Louis Armstrong, all these people stayed there, right? And so it has a huge jazz corridor there. There was the most popular club, according to this granny who was in this PBS documentary. She shouted out her favorite club. They did this granny rock. She had on her favorite silk suit, you know, her pantsuit from the 80s. It was white. She had her hair done. And they just had her on a dance floor surrounded in darkness, illuminated by a disco ball. Like, it was very like, you know, Club Alabama.
Club Alabama.
Club Alabama, honey. And doesn't that sound kind of fun?
Yes, it does.
I would go there. There's like a history of like kind of like racist, you know, like the Cotton Club. You know, there's like some like a lot of like, you got away from it, but you ain't that far, bitch, kind of names of places back then. So, yeah. So, you know, then the Great Depression hits, you know, and everyone's unemployed. Black people got fired in crazy amounts. They were the first ones to get fired from places and the last ones to receive government assistance. So there was people literally starving in the streets of Central Ave, no work, no money, housing. People
you mean like now?
Yes, basically. Yeah.
Like if you look outside, it's kind of like
if you look at your bank account right now and you go, oh yes, yeah. I did have to wait a month to get my fucking EDD to come through with my government money, and I was like, oh, y'all trying to starve me out. But I would certainly not. Anyway, okay. There's a lot of people equating right now to slavery
or jail,
and it's like, this is not that, honey. Okay.
We have cable.
Yeah, we have the internet. Although I follow quite a few people in jail on TikTok, so you know.
Me too. That's the best TikTok. I'm learning all kinds of jail recipes and like what they
Yeah.
can do
Are
with
you
cup soups and
serious?
pork rinds. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a very famous jail podcast.
What? Wait,
Oh,
I know
well,
about
Ear
that.
Hustle.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
know
Ear
about that.
Hustle's great.
That one I
Yeah.
understand, but TikTok, my guy.
TikTok. And I'm like, you are
TikTok.
trying to get like in trouble. Like that is definitely not allowed.
I see all the people like secretly TikToking on their break in the grocery store that they work, but not jail. Wow.
Yes,
I
jail.
mean-
Jail TikTok is popping. Please find it. I'm sure I can
Send me
Some
who to follow.
Okay,
And don't
I
snitch
will.
on them or else you'll get your wig split.
Correct. That's right, Paige. Can snitches? I mean, can Tekashi 6ix9ine fucking go somewhere?
yeah.
I mean,
Girl.
He did
Speaking
have
of
to go
jail
somewhere.
TikTok,
They
speaking
found
of
him.
jail TikTok, he's doing serving time at his house right now with a
They
lace
had to
front
move
wig
him.
on.
He had to move.
Yeah.
Good luck with witness protection on that one when you tattoo your name all over your damn face.
Right. Wow.
Fucking idiot. Okay. So we kind of touched on this since the last time I did your podcast in December, and now I have still not listened to the episodes of your other podcast page about
About
Father
Father
Divine. I still have not listened, and I'm sorry. I feel like I don't
It's
have
okay.
endless free time right now.
I mean, it's essentially a very similar story, just on the other side of the country. And then he does eventually visit California, specifically
He
Central
does.
Avenue, a couple times.
He does, and
Mhm.
he's one of the people that like kind of helps put through this landmark case, which I stupidly did not Google the name of, but you can do this yourself. So
They can
1940.
Google it.
Yeah, they can Google it. So like I said, Slauson is the dividing line,
Mhm.
and
I know Slauson.
the swap
Simply
meet,
wholesome.
swap meet.
Swap
That is where the
meet.
swap meet is.
Yes.
That's where the DDs is too.
Mhm.
Okay, and the rainbow.
DDs.
DDs
That's
and the
right.
rainbow. Discounts and deals, honey. So this black family in 1941, and I should have Googled who they were, but I'm sorry. I just ran out of energy because I was fearing for my life in quarantine.
Look, they were probably tired. You're tired.
Right.
This is fine.
The ancestors forgive me.
Yes.
So they tried to like move into a house and purchased a land and built a house south of Slauson in 1941. They got bomb threats. They got people leaving notes all over their house, like "move the fuck out," in not such kind words, you know. So they eventually were evicted from the land and property that they owned and jailed for living in their houses in Los Angeles. Mind you, this is during World War II. So like literally the woman's husband was overseas fighting for this country. And here his family was purchasing a home and trying to live in the home that they owned, being evicted from it and jailed because they were black. Plain and simple. So anyways, Father Divine is shouting them out. Like they're getting a lot of media coverage. They're doing protests up and down Central Avenue. You know, they're really getting active. This is before the hashtag Black Lives Matter. But if that was this time, it would be hashtag Black Lives Matter, you know, type of thing. So anyways, they take...
Wait, let's back up. Remind me of who Father Divine is?
Okay, so...
Paige, tag team.
You're welcome. So... Father Divine started a religious movement in New York, but he based it around basically lifting up the black community around him. So his church would eventually buy up businesses and land in parts of Harlem and Brooklyn, and then they would employ black people in times when black people couldn't get jobs. And part of the reason that he got involved in this housing dispute is because 10 years previous, he had the same dispute. So he had moved and purchased a house in upstate New York, essentially for his church. And so he had people in and out of there all the time. So it wasn't just him and his black family. It was dozens of black people all the time coming to his services, hearing him speak. He would feed like 3,000 people a week. He just also believed that he was Jesus, and it's complicated. Anyway, so like
he was good, but also like bad.
Yeah. He's one of those dudes that's like, he did a lot of good for essentially believing he was God and being kind of a problematic person in general.
A prophet. That's what he called himself.
Yeah. So they attempted to evict him from that house. and he owned it, and he went to jail for it a couple times. And in the end, he won. And the other people that lived around him tried to sue him for lowering the property value. And he was like, everyone is poor and starving, and I'm feeding them. So who's actually lowering the value of this community? And he ends up winning, and they keep that house for a long time, and then they sell it at way above market value to buy a hotel in Brooklyn, which they then convert into basically a clubhouse. But yeah,
pretty sick.
Like Mickey Mouse.
More like
like the clubhouse next to Vaughn's or John's in Los Feliz.
Oh God!
They do improv shows 7 days a week. They have 3 different stages.
Find the door.
Right, you need the door code to get in.
It was a place where all of his followers could essentially have a place to live, and they wouldn't have to pay rent. And it basically, in return, they would work for one of the businesses that he owned. The flip side of it was they also had to remain completely abstinent. Ooh. And not drink, and he had megaphones rigged through the entire house to basically blast sermons at them 24/7.
This is like that reality show with all those hot people where they're not allowed to hook up.
Yeah, but he would also feed them 3 meals a day. He was there, like, with them.
I mean, it sounds like a cult. It sounds like a cult.
Oh, it's stone cold a cult. But, like, it's one of the few cults where you're like, at the end of the day, fewer people were harmed than did good. And some of his last few adherents, if you want to call it, are still alive. And they're actually on their last compound. I believe it's in Connecticut or Philadelphia. No,
Connecticut.
Yeah. Where they basically, one of the members had a mansion and left it to them in their will. Damn. And so the money from the group, basically the cult, and that mansion has funded their, like, every meal, all their jobs. And so there's a group of like 10 elderly people just living out the rest of their days in comfort because of Father Divine, because they're the only ones left. Yeah.
Okay. And what you're saying is that Father Divine knew about the protests
in Los Angeles.
Central. Okay.
It was national news. They took their appeals case from LA City Court all the way up to the Supreme Court, where it was deemed unconstitutional to say that, like, land can only be owned and occupied by white people. And this is in 1948. Like, this is relatively new history, right? When this happens, I mean, it doesn't mean that, like, there's still aren't housing battles to be fought by Black people, but, like, damn, like, that's pretty recent. And I just want to say too that at this time in America, I had a statistic that said in Los Angeles during this time period, 37% of the Black population owned their homes. Only 37%, which is kind of a low number when you consider that, like, you know, majority of Americans in general own like 70%, like majority of people own. I just want to say that in 2019, I read a statistic. I Googled it. Who knows how true it is, but that like Black home ownership is currently in America 40 to 41%. So it hasn't raised that much. We're talking 3 or 4 points, you know, give or take. So it's still a battle that we're trying to win. Okay. So, you know, this case happens and it kind of breaks up Central Avenue. Central Avenue was a place where it was a small town within a big city and everybody knew each other. Everybody, you know, helped each other out. And due to economic downturn of, you know, the Great Depression, then followed by the war. And then, you know, once housing, people could buy places in Baldwin Park and View Park and Ladera Heights and anywhere in the city, Beverly Hills. Black people sort of moved all over Los Angeles, and the neighborhood fell into disrepair for many years. And then there was a huge resurgence in the area because they had they still have the Central Avenue Jazz Festival every year, every summer, which has like food and like other sort of like merchants and vendors selling stuff, and then like basically a full festival calendar or agenda of live jazz performances and South Central, and it's, you know, it's now mostly like a Latinx neighborhood, and so it's just a really, it's kind of dope how it's sort of come back around to being a cool place like it used to be, you know.
Yeah.
Nearly 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's Central Avenue.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, you know, those are the key events of it, and I believe it to be historically significant still and kind of cool.
I think we talked about this last time, but I'm curious because I've forgotten. But yeah, I am curious about like your thoughts on what it is that happens when, you know, as Black people were allowed to purchase homes and live places outside of that area. What happens to that area? Is it just like the community aspect gets watered down? Is it like, you know, I hear this phrase that a lot of Black people say a lot, you know, we don't help each other out. That sort of thing, like that spirit just dissipate with people's social mobility?
Yeah, I think so. Also because there is something of, you know, sometimes when people get ahead, they don't reach back to help those who are in need behind them. Like they sort of open the door for themselves and then shut it. And so that definitely happens. Yeah, I think that it's more of an issue of, you know, I don't think that neighborhood could be recreated today simply because of social media, and the way community looks now is much different, right? Like it's definitely more virtual, and especially in a pandemic, it's certainly super virtual. And it's less about a location and a time and a place. That particular neighborhood, like a lot of affluent Black neighborhoods, like there was a riot in Oklahoma City with Black people in the 30s, which the name I'm forgetting of right now, but there was a huge riot where like all these Black businesses were burnt down.
Oh yeah, that's at the beginning of
Tulsa.
Watchmen.
Yes,
in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa
Oklahoma City, Tulsa bombings. Yeah.
Yes. So I mean, there's just a history of anytime Black people kind of get a little bit of forward motion in this country, something happens to take what they've earned away from them. So yeah,
I mean, the prophet Kanye West once said
he's been relatively quiet. You know what? He's been very quiet during the pandemic, and I find that to be kind of interesting. Although I'm sure if he were to like get on Twitter right now, he would be like, "Everybody watch Plandemic and blow your mind." Like he's fucking being so horrible.
He's hiding out in his ranch in Wyoming.
Yeah,
just away from all of it, working on his textile mill.
Actually, I've somehow in my feed several articles came up about how Kanye's been getting on Kim's nerves.
No, really?
Yeah.
That's just unadulterated. All day long, every day.
This is probably the first time in their relationship where they've literally just had to be together alone for an extended amount of time. Because they're all so busy in work and they don't just spend that much time together.
One of the quotes I read was, Kim's just frustrated that Kanye never asks what he can do to help with the kids.
What'd she expect?
Yes.
What did she expect?
I know. And I mean, it's
is the nanny frustrated that Kim doesn't ask what she can do to help with the kids?
Is the nanny's assistant also frustrated? That's a better question.
But the thing that's so funny about that quote is like, it's so like, there's nothing incendiary about it. It's all, I'm like, I 100% believe that Kim has said that, because it's a very typical thing in a relationship. It's not about not caring for the kids or not being willing to. It's like one person's just upset because they haven't asked how they can help, right? Like, and when you're around each other 24/7, you start to see the types of these small inconsiderate things that people do that otherwise wouldn't bother you if you were just outside of the house, you know?
I mean, like my boyfriend currently coming into his own kitchen to get a Diet Coke on a Saturday afternoon. To be fair, like that just happened.
Yeah, so as the prophet Kanye once said, we're living the American dream. The people highest self got the lowest self-esteem. And I do think there's something about like, there is, like, at first the lie was the American dream, and then I think that lie got more insidious, where it was like, okay, like we're not going to be able to fully take away the American dream from you, so we'll just lie to you about how we're getting it. And then what happens is then like people have this either weird or just very isolated opinions about what it takes to achieve the American dream, and they don't see the full picture of like how other people got it, which is like a lot of times through networking and like having built in family wealth, right? They just think like, okay, I can move anywhere now, like that means I can do anything, right? And I think that community aspect that is inherently built in the way that like white supremacist society works and helps each other, I think that got broken down in very visibly. What I think it's evident in the Central Ave story.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, Black celebrities like lived in and still currently live in Ladera Heights, View Park, Baldwin Hills. You know, Tina Turner lived there, Ray Charles lived there, Terry McMillan lived there. In fact, I had a boyfriend back in the day whose uncle, very successful accountant, had a home in View Park, and he was like, "That's where Terry McMillan lives," and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Now, have you seen Waiting to Exhale?
Yes. Yeah,
you have.
Yeah. Well,
when did you see it?
As a child, because
wow.
Okay, so here's the thing about growing up in the hood: nobody's parent is around. Like, I just spent a lot of time completely unsupervised by adults. So if somebody's mom. This did happen one summer when I was in like maybe 4th grade or something. Whenever Waiting to Exhale came out on VHS, somebody's mom had purchased it. And when that bitch went to work, we popped that hoe in the VCR and was edified. I had the soundtrack. I mean, it was the
soundtrack was bomb.
It's fantastic.
Nothing but bangers. All bangers, period.
I mean, the movie is a lot of the soundtrack. So
yeah, I mean...
How do you feel about that movie being set in Phoenix, Arizona?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I guess that...
Did it even register to you?
No, I as a child, I just assumed it was California. I haven't watched it as an adult, so I don't know.
There's a lot of things about it that suggest California, which would make infinitely more sense. Watching it as an adult, there's a few different places that say Phoenix, and then when you look up information about the film, it's set in Phoenix.
It's set in Phoenix. And and they have several long conversations about how they can't find no good man, and they're all clearly looking for Black men, and it's like, bitch,
you in Phoenix.
You in Phoenix.
My goodness.
I revisit it. It's worth a rewatch.
I might. If I can get I don't know about you guys. I haven't been able to really watch anything of that has like a story arc to it. You know what I mean?
Really?
If there's like drama I don't have it in me to watch it during the pandemic. I can't. It's a lot of like children's programming, cartoons, Ghibli films.
That's
Disney.
good. I've been watching Jack Ryan, actually.
Oh, that's very...
You and my parents.
Intense.
Okay. I see you. I see what you did there.
I can't throw any stones at that glass house because my husband and I watched a German sci-fi drama series on Netflix that we had to like watch with.
Was it the one about the cave?
Yes, it's so good.
I had to stop watching it at a certain point because I was like, this is too much. My boyfriend watched it in a day. Like,
we watched it in 2.5 days. Yeah. The whole thing. Yeah.
No.
It was wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we've been watching a ton of stuff, but that's just because I'm working and I'm like, that's the only thing my brain can handle is like, let me escape to another world that has nothing to do with me. Although Jack Ryan is difficult because it's like the first season is literally what's happening now with a more sinister element to it.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, John Krasinski can get it.
Yeah, facts. You know what? Always.
True.
He's on the list.
I've been very upset that his girlfriend on the show is not American, and clearly not American, but she's playing an American, and it's like, bitch, get a speech coach.
Like that kills
She's
me.
Australian.
That bothers the fuck out of me. If I can see through your accent, no.
Yes.
Because here's the thing, whenever like Australians, British, or Canadian actors get highly emotional, they drop some vowels, and I'm like, that ain't American. They put some triptongs in there that we don't really fuck with, and I'm like, get out of here, taking my good American job. Give this job to a white lady actress. You don't deserve this, Kate. Or whatever your name is.
There's like 3 people that listen to this in Australia for some reason, and I hope they're not Australian.
They know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Devil's advocate, we've also been rewatching True Blood, and if you want to see Australians turn in some decent Southern accents, that's the place to see it.
You know what? To be fair, the Southern accent is
it's close.
It's very like it's easy to slide from British and Australian into Southern accent because the Southern accent is actually a British accent with a few hundred years between it. Irish too.
Oh, it also took 6 episodes to get a Black woman on that show with a line. So that needed to be pointed out. Jack Ryan, work on your diversity. There's Black women in the CIA. I'm sorry.
Do we think we're going to make new TV shows after this, or are we just stuck with what we have? What do you guys think? I think we're stuck with what we have at least for a few years.
I would say for probably at least a year. I think we're stuck with what we have just because that's what it'll take for people to film and like post prod and get stuff out. I think we might be stuck for a little bit.
I think we might get a few. I don't know like which ones they'll be, but I think the issue will come down to who on the staff can be reasonably tested, and like how limited is their like environment outside of work. Like I think like there are people that could go back to filming if everybody on set, like for example, like I watched The Masked Singer. Don't judge.
You're being judged.
But so it's like, I think there's like 12 or 14 episodes, but they film most of those within a period of like a couple weekends. And they just film all the episodes like in one day. And so I think shows like that where they could like potentially test everybody, film a bunch within like 1 or 2 days and then be done, and like make sure everything's highly sanitized or whatever.
Yeah, I think like unscripted and game shows could probably get away without having like audience and could have a limited crew and stuff like that. But buy scripted comedies, buy scripted drama. Nice to have known you. Thank God we lived in the golden age of streaming television, because I think we're just gonna have to rewatch what we already got.
I think it'll come back eventually, but it's gonna be a bit.
A couple years.
Well, let me ask you this before we sign off. Madison, have you ever revoked anybody's black card?
No.
No. You say it so sweetly.
Not in earnest, anyway.
Oh, not in earnest. Oh, okay.
But no. I generally, as somebody whose blackness is often called into question and called to accounts, I've discovered that my hair is 4A. You know what I mean? Like, I have very nappy fucking hair. So we won't be doing that going forward. But anyways, I just don't want to call other people's blackness into account. I don't think it's my place. Yeah. I don't give a shit, ultimately, because we've been discriminated against in similar ways and have a similar history. And I just don't want to get into the nitty gritty of it, personally.
Absolutely. No, I get it.
Although I have, but not in earnest.
I was re-listening to like a promo for one of the shows when one person that we had on the show had her black card revoked because she hadn't seen a specific episode of Martin.
Wow.
I know.
Black people are cold as fuck, dog.
They really
tyrants up in here, dog. Damn.
So yeah, no, it's a ruthless game, and we're trying to win it. Well, Madison, tell people where they can find you. Well, you know, are you still going live from time to time?
No, I'm not. I just don't have it in me to. I
Yeah.
that's not true. I've been writing a lot during this quarantine, and that is a blessing, but it's also a curse because who knows when anything will be made or anything like
Yeah.
that. But I do have plans for some form of content to come out because I've always been DIY as fuck. You know what I mean? I always make my own opportunities, and I will continue to do that. So if you want to find out, more about me, you can visit my website, themadisonshepard.com. You can also purchase my album for $5. Thank God I've recorded an album before all of this
Yeah.
shut down shit. Thank God I do have a document of my stand-up up to this point. You can find that on my website for $5. Buy it directly from me. It will all proceeds go to me, and I'm poor. You can also follow me on Instagram at Madison_Shepard, SHEPARD, or on Twitter at Madison Shepard.
Awesome. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. Please follow the show. I guess, it seems like all of us have some online shows coming up from time to time. So check those out. If you follow us on social media, you can find out about those and tune in. And until then, we'll be black next time.